Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on how push messaging can help you to better engage your listeners. I'm Bob Kernan. I'm the COO of jacapps. Our company is based near Detroit, Michigan, and we've built over 1,200 mobile apps, including apps for over 400 radio stations. We provide both platform and custom solutions for a wide array of businesses. Recently, we've launched a platform for push messages, which has quickly become a central part of the engagement strategy for a lot of major brands. Push messaging is not so much a technology, the technology has been around for a long time, as it is a strategy for communicating with and engaging your listeners on the most ubiquitous digital platform out there, the smartphone. Let's start with a basic definition, just so everyone is clear on what I'm talking about. These are the messages that appear in your notifications tray on your phone, frequently as news alerts and other timely communication. What makes them unique is that they are pushed to you. The user has to have downloaded your app, but doesn't have to open the app to get them. And in fact, these push messages give the user another reason to open your app. But these powerful messages can do a few things that can be very attractive to media brands. First of all, they increase user engagement. It's a reminder that you're there. It's a reminder that they have a relationship with you. And it's a way to get them involved in what you're doing on your station. So that, of course, is going to lead to hopefully better ratings for your station by keeping it top of mind and making your stream really easily accessible. In a world of hundreds of apps, people finding your app on their phone, even after they've downloaded it, can sometimes be a challenge. And it's easy if you're on the second or third screen of their phone for them to forget about you. So it's a great way to increase your ratings by, people knowing you're there and knowing what's going on. And if done right, these messages can even help you to increase revenue. By including your sponsors in those messages. Now, I really don't recommend selling push messages. That's a quick way to get your messages blocked by the user. But you can include sponsors in messages in other ways, simply by tagging them or in other creative ways, using them around promotions and things like that. So some of the common ways to use push notifications, these are just a few of them, but there are lots of them. First of all, breaking news. I'm sure most of us have some app on our phone that we've signed up to get breaking news alerts from, whether it's the New York Times or CNN or whomever. That's a really common use for these apps and can be used in creative ways, depending on the format of your station and what your users and your listeners would consider news. Another big way people are using them is as reminders for events. So if your station's doing a big event, or if there's a big concert or tickets are going on sale for something, this is a great way to get people engaged and to be that source of information and to just show that your brand really helps keep those listeners in the know. Program alerts. If you've got a celebrity interview coming up or a special program happening, a push message is a great way to remind people to tune in that the program is happening. Of course, I think most of us probably get weather updates. It's certainly something that works. If you have a news station, it's a great way, if there is severe weather in your area, to let your listeners know. And again, a way to establish your brand as a go-to source for this kind of information. We're also seeing stations have success using push messages for contests to let people know when to call in and win, or reminding them to enter, or letting them know that the time is about to run out on entering for a contest. But it's a great way, again, to engage your audience in something that they're interested in and that they like to get from you. And finally, if you've got special coupons or discounts, things like that, that your station is making available to your listeners, this is a great way to get people engaged with what you're doing. It's really important, though, for you to think creatively about it, think about your audience, and what are they really looking for from you. So the way these messages work is that when you send a message from whatever notification system you're using, the message gets sent directly to that user. When the user then clicks on that message, it can take them either into your app or it can take them to any web page you want, but they'll be sent directly there. The key things to remember that will make your messages most effective, first of all, make sure that there's some urgency behind it. A lot of brands I'm seeing now are just sending out messages with no real timeliness or urgency. And I know myself, I mostly ignore them. If I get a news alert from CNN, I expect that there's some breaking news. If all they're doing is promoting a feature story, which they do fairly regularly, I'm disappointed and it's not a good user experience. You want there to be some urgency. Remember that you're pushing this message right to the front of the user's phone, where the most important things, their email, their texts, all of that stuff is showing up. The second thing is timeliness. Make sure that there's a reason that you're sending it to them at that time and not just because you want to. Again, you really have to be respectful of the priority that these messages currently take with users and make sure that they do deliver on that promise. And finally, what do you want the user to do with that message? A strong call to action is really crucial, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So having watched lots of brands struggle with their strategy and push notifications, we've come up with what we think are 4 crucial elements for developing a good push message strategy. The first is relevance. Second, brevity. Third, as I was just speaking about, timeliness. And finally, as I said, call to action. Let's take a look at each one of these individually. So the first point is an important one. Don't write messages from the point of view of your own business needs, or at least don't write them just from the point of view of your own business needs, and definitely not from the point of view of what an advertiser needs. You want to think about your user. What is the service you're providing them, and really give them something that they can find value in. Also remember, less is more. Beware of spamming your users. By doing this, sending too many messages, sending them too frequently, it really reduces the effectiveness. And frankly, it encourages users to opt out of receiving messages from you. You want that topic to be relevant, actionable, and timely. Make your messages ones that ask for a concrete action from the user. Secondly, when it comes to relevance, make it personal. A conversational tone in your messages will help engage the audience. You can use emojis or images or casual language to emphasize the friendly, positive tone you want for your brand. Your messages should mirror and borrow from the tone you use on air and in other communications from your brand, whether that's emails or text messages or anything like that. Don't be afraid to have a little fun. Just don't become annoying, and be clear. Don't assume everyone's been listening and understands the context when they get your message. The other thing about relevance is users are going to have to opt in. You can't send your users any push notifications without their permission. So you want to make sure that you let them know the benefits of hearing from you. And there are actually 2 elements to opt in that you have to be aware of. The first is on the level of the device's operating system. We've all seen the message like this one here on the screen. This is the most crucial moment. If the user decides don't allow here, it likely means they're gone for good. The second is in the app itself. Here's where, if you're using topics, the user can decide which messages he or she wants to get from you. So be sure to label your topics clearly. Brevity. You have a very small space and people have very short attention spans. So this point really cannot be overemphasized. These messages are really consumed at a glance. The user's probably walking along, maybe they're starting their car or they're getting on an elevator or something like that, but they only have a few moments. So be quick and to the point. Just because you have a total of about 140 characters doesn't mean you have to use them all. As you can see from this chart here, some messages need to be a little longer than others, but some can be really, really short. The most effective push notifications tend to run between 20 and 90 characters. So think more like a tweet than a Facebook post for this kind of thing. When you schedule your message really matters. As you can see from these stats here, there is actually an optimal time to send your messages. It may be different from brand to brand or from station to station. But in addition to the stats here, you should look at your own statistics for your push messaging and see when you get the most engagement. Keep track of this, and then over time you can fine-tune your strategy to get the most engagement possible with your audience. As you can see here, one of the most engaging time tends to be around lunchtime. It's when people have a little more time, but they're also well into their day and they're ready to hear from you by that point. And finally, the call to action. This really has to be an important element of how you compose your messages. The whole point of sending these messages is to get your audience to do something. So make sure you're clear about what you want them to do and make it easy for them to do it. That means using good, strong verbs that are clear and, again, have that sense of urgency behind them. And once the user does click, make sure the destination you send them to has a clear connection to the message. The user shouldn't be questioning what you sent them to or why you sent them to that particular place. It should flow naturally and clearly, and the action you want them to take on that destination page should be really clear and visible as soon as the page loads. Now, before you hit send, remember that you're interrupting someone with your message, so make sure it's right. And that means don't get carried away and send too many messages. As I said, you don't want to be a spammer. Next, proofread your message. Make sure it's correct. The details are accurate and there aren't any typos. I can't tell you how many messages I see that have typos, and it doesn't enhance my feelings about the brand or the sender. And make sure the call to action is clear and compelling. A vague call to action isn't going to get the click you're going for. And finally, be sure it's relevant to the people you're sending it to. One of the things that we can do with our push messaging platform, and in most push messaging platforms, is you can create topics where users can opt in to get different types of messages from you depending on what they're interested in. The tendency, especially in the early days, is going to be to send your message to as many people as you possibly can, maybe everybody. And I really caution against that, because if people start getting messages that are not relevant to them, they will disallow you to send them those messages at all. So after you've hit send, don't forget about the message. Make sure you go back the next day or a little bit later and see how it performed. The first thing you want to look at are the opt-ins. How many people are actually receiving messages from you in each category or topic area? If that number starts to decline over time, it means you're doing something wrong, probably a problem of frequency or relevance. Also check the delivery rate. Are most of the messages you're sending being received? If not, there could be a number of technical issues to look into. And then see how many people actually engaged with the message. That's the stat that matters most. Did you get the click-throughs? Did people really engage with what you're doing and follow through? That's why I really suggest that you have strong calls to action. Messages that are purely informational are fine, but it's very hard to tell if your message landed at all. And then finally, over time, look for trends from message to message. Are your messages too long? Do they work better at some times during the day or others? Is a shorter message gain more engagement than a longer one? Those are the kinds of things you want to look at. The object is to continually improve your messages to improve your results, and it does take time. So as I said at the beginning, we've launched our own push messaging platform here at jacapps, and we think it's really ideally suited for the media industry. And here's why. A lot of providers out there have radically raised their prices lately. Our solution is inexpensive and easy to set up. There are no limits on how many messages you can send or how many people you can send them to. Our solution is incredibly easy to use. A clear, simple interface walks you through setting up and sending your message in 4 simple steps. We want you focused on what the message says, not the mechanics of sending it. And with our enhanced product, you can use topics to target subsets of your audience to really drive that relevance to a high level. You can also schedule messages in advance for future delivery, making it very easy to set up a whole messaging campaign around an event or a promotion and know that it will just execute. And you can easily see how your message did with our simple analytics package. So if you're interested in getting started, please reach out to Ceres Allison here at jacapps. She can walk you through everything and get you started. Also, she and Paul Jacobs will be attending NAB in Las Vegas from April 6th to the 11th. So feel free to reach out to them and set up a face-to-face meeting with them if you're also there. Thank you so much for your time and attention. We will be posting this webinar on our website in the next couple of days. So if there's anyone in your organization you'd like to share it with, you'll be able to do that. Have a great afternoon.